Ipwf. You're welcome. You're welcome. Kindly, we're standing, so we'll take the national anthem now. Without much ado, okay, so much to be done today. So much. Are you ready? Are you ready? I won't give you the original yet. There's something. It will come later. Are you ready? Don't plan to go. Don't plan to go and say, okay, I will just give them 2 hours. We'll miss. You will do what? You will do what? Ruzo. Oh, let me know. Let's just take the national anthem now without much ado. Seated. God bless Nigeria. The introduction of this great gathering, interdenominational pastors' wives forum. But I'd just like to tell you a little bit about her because I know many of us know her. She's an accomplished educationist of over 25 years. She's an ordained minister of the gospel. She's an author, she's a wife, and she's a mother. She's a Chief Executive Officer of Heritage House Schools and the Director of Studies of Heritage House Montessori Teacher Education Program, accredited by the Montessori Accreditation Council for Teacher Education in the United States of America, MACTE. She's a Syed Business School alumnus of the Women in Leadership Program and an international conference speaker. She's passionate about ministry to women, particularly young women and pastors' wives. She's a certified Christian mentor and professional coach. She runs the Titus 2-4 mandate, a formal mentoring program aimed at intentionally and formally mentoring young women and empowering them to deal with the issues of life. She's a mother of 3 adult children. Her name is Debola Atoyebi. Let's put our hands together as we welcome Debola Atoyebi to come and introduce IPWF. Keep on clapping, please. We bless God, the God of Debola Atoyebi. God bless you.
Pastor and Pastor Mrs. Ipwf, my fellow helpmates in ministry, all of our panelists, all of our speakers here present, I welcome you to this maiden edition of the IPWF Interdenominational Pastors' Wives Forum. I said maiden because this is the first conference we're holding, and I believe that it is the first of very many that will come in the mighty name of Jesus. I'm sure some people are wondering, why a gathering? When God gives you a vision and he puts a burden in your heart, there's no way you can run away from it. And that, I believe, is what has happened to me. And for God to put a burden in your heart, then it must be that there are people crying to God somewhere and saying, Lord, help us. And so, because of that burden, in 2008, I started working on bringing pastors' wives together. I had seen, I had heard, and I could feel the pain of pastors' wives. I had seen their struggles. I had seen the challenges they were going through. I had seen the lack of preparedness for the call to be a pastor's wife. Not because I had gone through any kind of preparation either, but because I felt that it was necessary to change things, because change is the only thing that is. The fact that we were not prepared for this particular call, the fact that we struggled with this call, does not mean that those coming behind us should continue to struggle. And so I responded to that call to make life easier for pastors' wives. How it was going to be done, I had no idea. But because it was a vision given by God, I knew that he was going to make provision. But I will highlight the objectives. IPWF aims to support, and that means to promote, to aid, and assist pastors' wives through mentoring, through coaching, promoting enterprise, promoting career, promoting skills, through beneficial schemes and networks, providing legal and advisory support in the case of confirmed abuse, or violence. I'm sure some of us are wondering, we are pastors' wives. Why are we talking about violence and why are we talking about abuse? The truth is that the church, and indeed the clergy, is not exonerated or insulated from the moral decadence that we have in the country. And it is because we have seen cases of such amongst the clergy, and we cannot ignore it, and we cannot close our eyes to it, and we have to rise up and defend ourselves. Because if we do not do that, nobody will rise up for us. And so we're here to support. In this hall, I see generations of pastors' wives. I know mothers who are here as pastors' wives. And I know mothers mothers who are here as pastors' wives, and their daughters are also here as pastors' wives. And so there's a passing on of the baton to the next generation. And if we're going to do that, we have to do it well. We want our daughters to marry men who are sold out to God. A lot of us didn't start as pastors' wives. We only wanted men who loved God and who, are filled with the things of God, but they ended up becoming pastors. And so we need to prepare the next generation. IPWF will encourage, we will inspire, we will motivate, we will reassure pastors' wives. We know we cannot do it by ourselves. And so we depend on God, and we will be praying. We will give counsel, godly counsel and advice where needed, and provide opportunities such as this and many more for celebration, for fellowship, for coming together and sharing good ideas and good practice so that iron will sharpen iron. We will equip and empower. We will enable pastors' wives. We will qualify pastors' wives. And when I say qualify, we're not going to send pastors' wives to university, but there are so many different ways by which we can qualify people. We can, equip you by teaching and giving you the prerequisite knowledge that you need. Not so much of theology, but so much of information that is needed to qualify you and make you feel more enabled to do the work. And we will do this through leadership teachings, social graces, and etiquette teachings, even for pastors' wives. It will amaze you, when you look at pastors' wives, you'll be amazed at, the lack of skills and knowledge that pastors' wives have. And we're here to bridge that gap and to make us better people. I know that in the secular world, when people are appointed to positions of authority, when men are appointed to positions of authority, their wives get to be schooled and to be taught about what they need to do, how to put one step after the other, how to stand, how to speak, how to talk in public. But we do not see the same in ministry. And the time is right for us to do that, because we are put in front of people to serve. And so we should learn how to do that better. And so I believe that IPWF will not only benefit many young pastors' wives, but also provide opportunities for the mothers who are handing over the baton to their children. Provide opportunities for those who may not even have daughters, but who have sons, but whose sons, might end up going into ministry, so that they'll be able to do ministry together with the wives that they marry in a better way. The harvest is ripe for those who want to serve in that capacity. Some of us yearn to serve, and that harvest is ripe. IPWF will give you that platform to serve, to volunteer, to partner in whichever way the Lord lays upon your heart. And together, we will become stronger and we will become better to the glory of the name of the Most High God. God bless you and welcome once again.
I am delighted, really, really delighted to be given the honor of introducing the keynote speaker. She's an Esther of our time, a woman of great grace, a woman that God has taken to that position to be the Esther to intercede for this great nation. It gives me great pleasure to introduce the wife of the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Her Excellency, Mrs. Dolapo Oshibajo. Let's put our hands together as she comes up.
Board Chairman of Ipwf, Pastor Laulu Ojeparasi, President, Ipwf Forum, Pastor Debola Atoebi, Senior Pastor of Guiding Light Assembly, Pastor Wale Adefarasi, Ipwf Board of Trustees, speakers and panelists, distinguished pastors' wives, and distinguished guests. Good morning, everybody. I wish to start by congratulating the board and members and to salute the expression of the vision of Ipwf. I'm very delighted to be here. I became a pastor's wife at age 29, and I had 3 young children. The plan when I got married to my husband, at least my plan, because he was a lecturer, I thought he would live in Unilag, in a nice house with a yard at the back, that he will have Wolisho Inca hair and wear danshikis, and will have a lot of friends coming in with very academic and inspiring conversations, and barbecues and dinner parties, and that was my plan. But God had another plan. To him be all the glory. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I've been asked to speak with you about keeping it real. Relationships, encouragement, accountability, and laughter. So just as we start off, I'd like us to establish a few things. That if we're here to keep it real, let that be not only in word, but also in deed. I'd like to ask for you to bear with me and to be cautious when you share the experiences I share with you. If I do not have the confidence that you'll be cautious with the stories I share with you, then perhaps I would speak, but I would not share as many stories, and I may be unable to pass the message across as effectively as I could. So we go straight into keeping it real. I'd like us to have at the back of our minds as we go through the personalities that are concerned in this discussion. Of course, the Lord is the first, mighty and strong, Lord mighty in battle, lover of our souls, the one that sticks closer than a brother, the one that has promised us life eternally. So the Lord is the first personality that we will consider. The second is his people and his creation. You know, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. I know I'm speaking to pastors' wives, so we can just launch straight into it. I've yet to come across a school, as Pastor Debola said, for pastors' wives. There's no school for pastors' wives. Sometimes you get training in the churches where we pastor. Do the older women still teach the younger women? Or do the older women only complain? My view is that the older women know because they were taught, and the younger women don't know because we have refused to teach them. And so rather than complain about the young people, should complain about ourselves and then choose to do it as the Bible has said. So today, we're choosing to keep it real. Of course, it should be an interaction. I'll share with you some phrases that have helped me over the years, and I'll tell you why. Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. When I'm faced with difficulty, this is what I say. And that word many times becomes flesh. That word many times becomes provision. So from time to time, if I say the Lord is my shepherd, I would like you to respond, I shall not want. Excellent. These are pastors' wives. You don't even need to go deep at all. In John 5:7, there's a story of the man that was sitting at the well, sitting by the well. And when the angel stirs the water, he said he had no man to help him to get in there. And we're told in that story that Jesus came and was about to heal him. But he was telling stories. He should have just said, yes, Lord, heal me. And because of that story, I started saying, Miorojo, Adura Nimoba. So if the Lord shows up, it's not a time for stories and history lessons, and it's just a time to say, in Jesus' name, amen. So that which we require, we can receive from the Lord. So I know we don't all speak Yoruba, but if I say Miorojo, please answer me, Adura Nimoba. Meaning all I'm doing is praying in Jesus' name, amen. And the matter is settled. One more thing. Another thing that has helped me, that I roll around in my mind many times and speak and teach, is maintain your lane. So if I say maintain your lane, you say yes, Lord. Because the Lord has appointed us to certain paths, and we are to keep to that path. The Lord appointed for John the Baptist to be outdoors, eating locusts and wild honey. But he appointed for Solomon to live in a palace. Maintain your lane. Yes, Lord. Maintain your lane. Yes, Lord. So I may not be able to speak as powerfully as Pastor Debola. I may not be as tall as Pastor Wali, Pastor Laulu, because I had to bring this microphone down. We're supposed to be keeping it real today. The pastor's wife, will you still love me if you know that I was a bit anxious about this sleeve this morning? The tailor made it. Ankara covers a lot of sins because of the patterns. But these are the things that make us anxious as pastors' wives. How will I look today? What will they say today? What if they find out more about me? Will they still love me? Many times, when I have to walk out, I promise the Lord at the beginning of this journey, and I've kept to it, that the pulpit is not a place for politics. So today we won't be talking about politics at all. I promised myself that each time I'm asked to go out somewhere, I would keep my head up. Because my default mode, the dolly within, looks down and it's quiet and doesn't want to be seen or heard. So sometimes when you see me walking across a place to a podium on the TV, just know that I'm saying to myself, look up, Dolly. Walk straight, Dolly. Will they still love me if they know my fears as a pastor's wife? Will they still love me if they know my limitations as a pastor's wife? Let's look at our text for today. I will be reading from verse 24. 1 Samuel 10, I'll be reading from verse 24, and we'll read right through to chapter 11 to the end. Will you love me if you know that my Bible is still the old paper Bible and I'm not using an iPad yet? We're supposed to remember to laugh during this meeting. So feel free to do so. We're keeping it real. And Samuel said to all the people, do you see him whom the Lord has chosen? That there's no one like him among all the people. So all the people shouted and said, long live the king. And Samuel explained to the people the behavior of royalty and wrote it in a book. and laid it up before the Lord. And Samuel sent all the people away, every man to his house. And Saul also went home to Gibeah, and valiant men went with him, whose hearts God had touched. But some rebels said, "How can this man save us?" So they despised him and brought him no presents, but he held his peace. I'd like us to look at this a bit before we move on. Saul is chosen, and so are you. Samuel explains the protocols, behavior of royalty, and wrote it down for Saul. So we need to seek out the protocols and the etiquette of where we find ourselves. Find that even as he's appointed, as you are appointed as the pastor's wife, some people believed him, believed in him, and others didn't. Though some despised him, but others followed him. But he held his peace. When you turned up in the church as the pastor's wife, and even today, pastors, some people greet pastor with such love and adoration, and they shut down the pastor's wife with one look. Some people look at the pastor's wife and think, she's not educated enough, she's not old enough, she's not beautiful enough. Some people look at her and say all manner of things, but at the end we'll be talking about hashtag voices, about the voices that we hear. So we find in the text that some people went with him, they followed him, but others refused to do so. And to that I say, maintain your lane.
Yes, Lord.
In Jesus' name. Saul held his peace. Chapter 11. Then Nahash the Ammonite came up and encamped against Jabesh Gilead. And all the men of Jabesh said to Nahash, "Make a covenant with us, and we will serve you." And Nahash the Ammonite answered them, "On this condition I will make a covenant with you, that I may put out all your right eyes, and bring reproach on all Israel." Then the elders of Jabesh said to him, "Hold off for 7 days, that we may send messengers to all the territory of Israel, and then if there is no one to save us, we will come out to you." So the messengers came to Gibeah of Saul, and told the news in the hearing of the people. And the people lifted up their voices and wept. Now there was Saul coming behind the herd from the field. And Saul said, "What troubles the people that they weep?" And they told him the words of the men of Jabesh. Then the Spirit of God came upon Saul when he heard this news, and his anger was greatly aroused. So he took a yoke of oxen and cut them in pieces, and sent them throughout all the territory of Israel by the hands of messengers, saying, "Whoever does not go out with Saul and Samuel to battle, so it shall be done to his oxen." And the fear of the Lord fell on the people, and they came out with one consent. When he numbered them in Bezek, the children of Israel were 300,000, and the men of Judah 30,000. And they said to the messengers who came, "Thus you shall say to the men of Jabesh Gilead, tomorrow by the time the sun is hot you shall have help." Then the messengers came and reported it to the men of Jabesh, and they were glad. Therefore the men of Jabesh said, "Tomorrow we will come out to you, and you may do with us whatever seems good to you." So it was on the next day that Saul put the people in 3 companies, and they came into the midst of the camp in the morning watch, and killed the Ammonites until the heat of the day. And it happened that those who survived were scattered, so that no 2 of them were left together. Then the people said to Samuel, "Who is he who said, 'Shall Saul rule, reign over us? Bring the men that we may put them to death.' But Saul said, 'Not a man shall be put to death this day. For today the Lord has accomplished salvation in Israel.' Then Samuel said to the people, 'Come, let us go to Gilgal, and renew the kingdom there.' So all the people went to Gilgal, and there they made Saul king before the Lord in Gilgal. There they made sacrifices of peace offerings before the Lord. And there Saul and all the men of Israel rejoiced greatly." Look at a few points on this before we move ahead. The people had threats. There was danger. There was an imminent threat to them. And the enemy said to them, "We're coming for you." And they agreed with the enemy. They said, "You know what? Let's make a covenant with you. We will serve you. It's okay. We relinquish our sovereignty, we relinquish everything. We will serve you." This tells us that the people are ready to compromise. Because they were ready to agree with the enemy. Don't hurt us, don't harm us. Just tell us what you want. We'll do it. Make a covenant with us. We will be your servants. The whole of creation is groaning and waiting for the manifestation of the sons of God. And that is who you are. The relationships that we find in real. What is your relationship what's the relationship between you and the people of God in the congregation? What is the relationship? What's your relationship between you and the people of God outside of the congregation? Because he says, "And other sheep I have, which are not of this fold, them also I must bring, that there will be one shepherd and one flock." I believe it's John 3:17 or so that says that. No, not John 3:17. Pardon me. That says he came not to condemn, but he came to save. And so they had threats, just as we have threats today. Threats of killings and people stealing other people's things and all sorts of threats. Immorality. And the people say, "It's okay, don't harm us. We will serve you. It's safer to serve you than to be on the opposite side from you." They say that because they do not know the Lord Most High. They do not know the one that at the mention of his name, every knee shall bow. They don't know the one that is able to save, able to make rivers in the desert and make a way in the wilderness. Let them walk on dry land in the midst of the sea. They don't know him. And the people were ready to compromise up to a point. Because the enemy said, "We'll make a covenant with you, but we're going to put out all your right eyes and make you a reproach." And then they said, "It's not like that too. We're ready to compromise, but it's not like that too. Not that you take out our right eyes and make us a reproach." The wickedness of the enemy is very wicked. And it's not only against you, but also against the people of God that are in your care. The day you became a pastor's wife, you suddenly became a mother of all sorts of people you didn't give birth to. Some believe you're their mother. Others don't believe you're their mother. Some are ready to accept you as a pastor's wife. Others are not ready to accept you. But you are in essence their mother. You are in essence the one who loves them and has been given the responsibility to care for them. At least twice in church, they brought me area boys in handcuffs. Because when they were arrested and handcuffed and they said, "Where's your family? Where's your home?" I brought them to church. They're my children in handcuffs. And the love that the Lord has put in your heart, allow the Lord, allow the Holy Spirit, allow him to lead you, allow him to show you the path that he has made out for you. We're not all Pastor Adeboye. We can't all speak quietly like him. We're not all Bishop T.D. Jakes. We may not be able to traverse the scripture like him, but you are you, and you must be the best you that he made. But what he appointed us to do, the people around you don't know it. Nobody knew Saul was being quickened by the Spirit of God. Nobody knew it. And he could have continued, and everybody would have said, "Oh, Saul is the best thing since sliced bread," not knowing that the Lord says he's an unfaithful servant and unfruitful in what I have sent him to do. Do the work of T.D. Jakes, you can't get the reward of T.D. Jakes. His work is his work, and his reward is his reward. Maintain your lane. So there's something in you that the Lord has appointed for you to do, but it is just for you. So we must step out of the physical and be led by the Spirit. We must begin to open the ears, our spiritual ears, so that we can hear what we are called to do. Many of us say, my purpose, my purpose. There's no such thing as my purpose. Well, there may be, but when he shows up, nevertheless not my will. It's God's purpose for your life. God's purpose for your life. That's what it is. Look at Ruth, the Moabitess. God hates the Moabites. How on earth did Ruth imagine that she could step into Israel? Not only step into Israel, to be a name, have a name forever in the lineage of Christ. Can you imagine what he has prepared for them in the Spirit? Can you imagine the souls that he has ordained and appointed you to save? When I had the ministry to the area boys, my husband was Attorney General of Lagos State. They didn't know who I was. They didn't know. They just called me Mama. Mama comes with tea, Mama comes with lunch, Mama scolds them. Today, I know that the Lord must have seen me with those few sheep in the wilderness, as they said to David. The Lord must have been showing me then, because the most dangerous place in the city for me was the safest place. It was a place where if you moved near me, you can't live to tell the tale. In fact, I rescued the boys amongst themselves, because if you are talking when I'm talking, the way the other boys will descend on you, can't you hear Mama is talking, and you are talking? You cannot even imagine. Ears have not heard, eyes have not seen. It has not even entered into the heart of man what the Lord has prepared for you. And I want you to continue in an attitude of thanksgiving, because he could have chosen anybody, but he chose you. He chose you to be a leader. He chose you to be the pastor's wife. He could have chosen anybody at all. He chose you. And he has a responsibility. He has an expectation of you. I know you also have an expectation of him. But let your expectation of him begin in the things of the Spirit. Because sometimes they think Jesus is talking about physical bread, but he's actually talking about spiritual bread. They think Jesus is talking about an earthly kingdom, but he's actually talking about a heavenly kingdom. So we need to move out of only the physical in our expectations of the Lord. He also has an expectation of you. He knows you can do it. That is why he gave you that task. Earlier in the text, 1 Samuel 9, 20 to 21, Saul says, am I not a Benjamite? My tribe is the least tribe in Israel. My family is the least, smallest family inside our tribe. Why are you saying these things to me? Why are you saying to me as though I am a great one? That great one you are. You may be like Gideon, threshing wheat in the winepress, hiding. Arise today. Arise today. Thank God for choosing you. Thank him for all that he has done. Don't complain so much that your own purpose is sucked up in the purpose of your husband. They don't see me, they only see pastor. I also have a ministry. Where's my ministry? If I perish, I perish, is what Esther said. If I perish, I perish. She was ready to do the work for the people that they be not, so that they wouldn't be destroyed, even if it was at the cost of her life. So yes, there are sacrifices to be made. I won't tell you much about this time, like I said. There are sacrifices to be made. But I remember when my husband was Attorney General, I can talk about that now. The thing that had hands laid on the most in our home was the things he wore to court. They should have been threadbare because they were laid hands on so much by me. Because there he was, doing all manner of cases, getting all manner of threats. There he was, coming late. I never slept until my husband comes in. I'll sit up on the chair until he comes in. Sit up on the chair until he comes in. It's a sacrifice. So I would go to bed when my children are settled. I would nap for an hour or two. They had a set bedtime. And then I was up until he comes back, so that I can be bright-eyed, I can connect with him. For the pastor's wife, because the pastor is the pastor. If the pastor is not the pastor, you are not the pastor's wife.
Absolutely.
So you must take care of the pastor. Even when the pastor despises you and despises your ministry, you must take care of the pastor.
True.
Because these are the things the Lord is going to require at your hand. These are your subjects. When you return, how many talents did you have? Talents? What did you do with my son that I kept in your hand? The man of God, as Pastor Debola says, is a man first before he's a man of God. Or is he a spirit of God? He's a man first, he's a man of God. As you see, we learn, there's so much we can learn from one another. From the moment Pastor Debola said that, I have never forgotten my thing. She said it years ago. I know that man is made up of 5 senses: sight, smell, touch, etc. You must satisfy all 5 senses. The smell of crayfish in the pot, not in the house. Do you get it?
Yes.
The smell of crayfish in the pot, not in the house. Do you get it?
Yes.
What words does he hear when he comes back? Please, for the next 1 week, do a chart for yourself and put the 5 senses and put yourself in your husband's shoes, your children's shoes, and then in church, congregation's shoes. And then you will find the areas you need to fix. Nobody wants to walk into a house that smells like a buka. Sight. The curtains were nice, you bought them at John Lewis. But 5 years down the road, they're dog-eared. It's time to change it. It's time to change it. It's time to change it. You still see it when you bought it and remember how many pounds you brought out of your purse. But other people see dog-eared curtains. In the church as well, it should be love. It should be love. It should be love. The message of Christ is a message of love. You love the prostitute, you love the armed robber, you love them into Christ. That is what we've been asked to do. That is what we've been asked to do. And I'll close with you. 1 Samuel 10:6-7. The Bible says that the Spirit of the Lord will come upon you and you will prophesy with them. This is on Saul. And you will be turned into another man. And let it be, when these signs come upon you, that you do as the occasion demands, for God is with you. Everything you thought you could not do, let me announce to you, you can. Because you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. God bless you.
But we are blessed indeed, really fortunate in this gathering to have a man, a real man of God, a social entrepreneur, an international speaker, a TV presenter, respected thought leader who strongly leads the corporate existence of our country, Nigeria. It gives me great pleasure and honor to invite the senior pastor of the Guiding Light Assembly. I'm talking of none other than Pastor Wadi Adefarasi. Let's put our hands together as we invite the man of God to take the podium. Rise up in honor of the God of this man. God bless you, Pastor.
Thank you. Please be seated. I want to talk about the relationship in the family. And can we start at the very first one? I know you may not all be able to see the slides, so I'm not going to rely on it as much as imagine a wall. It is made of bricks. Now, if the bricks that make up the wall are strong, are firm, the wall will be a strong wall. But if the bricks that make up the wall are soft, weak, and feeble, then the wall could come crashing down at any time. Now, I want you to imagine that the family is a lot, or that as the brick is to the wall, so is the family to the community. If the family is healthy and strong, the society, the community will be healthy and strong. And the moment you begin to see dysfunctional families, you find a dysfunctional society. The marriage determines the climate in the family. The marriage determines how your parenting skills would be. Now, I don't know if I'm right, but I think if you have a happy marriage, you will have good parenting. But it's difficult to be a good parent if you're unhappy in your marriage. Okay? Now, if you are a good parent, your children should have a happy childhood. And if they live in a home where it's constant battle between the couple, they won't have happy times to remember. And the children are going to carry what they had in their home into the home that they will later found. So if a child grew up in a happy and warm environment, that child is more than likely to build a happy and warm family himself or herself. You tend to find that people who have grown up in a broken home have a greater risk of forming a broken home themselves. Now, I'm saying this, and I know we're talking about pastors, I'm talking to pastors' wives, but I'm saying this to lay a foundation. I think more than anybody else, the pastor's wife has a tremendous responsibility in the work of restoring the values that we have lost in family. I tell the men, the school run is not about getting your children to school. The school run is about bonding with them as you go and as you come. You have to make time. You have to make time for your children. If you go to a PTA, it will probably be like this, women. The men don't show up. And the children need their fathers. I come to the word real. If you are going to be real, and you need to be real, I describe an act, the 3 letters of the word act. Appearances contradicting truth.
Oh my goodness.
Because very often we portray an image that just isn't true. And you know about acting, everybody knows you're acting. You that is acting, you know. The people you're acting for, they know. We need to be real. In our homes, in our families, in our church, in our relationships in church, whether it's with the congregation, with the leadership, we need to be real. The very first thing we must come to understand is, number one, we don't know it all. It doesn't matter who you are, how big you are, you don't know it all. and you can learn from anybody. E is for empathy. There's a big difference between the word empathy and the word sympathy. If a person falls into a ditch, you sympathize by getting into the ditch and trying to bring them out. That's a lot more difficult than if you empathize, which is you're outside the ditch, but you're helping them out of the ditch. We need a lot of empathy in our homes, especially with our children. A is for alignment. And by alignment, I mean being in your lane. I think Your Excellency put it very well. Maintain your lane. I've seen so many marriages get into trouble because we fall out or leave our lane and go into somebody else's lane. I won't dwell on that. L is for lifetime. A legacy is the values we pass on. The ability to have a vision. I don't know how many people have visions in their families. My father's vision, and it was very clear to all of us, was that each of us must at least get a first degree. That was his vision. So I couldn't go and say, Dad, I want to be a plumber. He said, well, you can be a plumber if you want, but I'm not the one that's going to pay for it. And constantly we were told an education is the only legacy a parent can give to his child. This was hammered in. Things like honesty is the best policy. Hammered in. And you know really what values are and what you value. What's your order of priorities? Is wealth a greater priority than honesty? Because if it is, you will be dishonest in order to gain wealth. But if honesty was a greater priority than wealth, then you will be honest. You will not do anything dishonest in order to get wealth. The man is better at equipping a child with a knowledge of its responsibilities, while the woman is better at equipping a child with the knowledge of its rights. A child has a right to be fed. A child has a right to be changed. Mother nurtures a child, and the child's rights are what the mother is best at doing. But the father is the one that says, no, don't snatch that toy from this child. Care. Sharing is caring, and so on and so forth. So we have to get back to families, starting with the pastor's families, that are living the truth. Amen. Thank you very, very much.
Oh, let's just stretch out our hands and bless God for Pastor. I didn't want him to finish. I just stood up to Okay, please let's just pray and thank God for his life and ask that the Lord God Almighty will increase grace upon him and strengthen his ministry. Let us ask that the Lord God Almighty will uphold him and continue to make him a blessing to this generation. Thank you, Lord. Blessed be your name. In Jesus' matchless name we have prayed. Let's put our hands together for Jesus. We're going very quickly. Okay, very quickly we're going to introduce the panel. Now we have two discussion sessions, okay? We have the first one and then we have the second one. Before I do that, I would like to just call on the moderator, Dr. Mrs. Jumoke Ojuwale. Let's put our hands together. She was, or she is, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Industry, Trade and Investment in the Office of the Vice President. You're welcome. God bless you. I want you to take the middle seat there so the panelists will flank you to the left and to the right. We have 30 minutes and you have a microphone, moderator? Good. And we have microphones. We have one on that end. So I hand over to the moderator.
Good morning, everyone.
This is going to be interesting. I was just telling my pastor, Pastor Mali, that's my pastor.
Oh, wow.
This is going to be interesting. I have the mic. And I think I'm probably the only person that isn't a pastor's wife in this room. So it's extremely humbling. My pastor, Pastor Lalu, invited me, and today is her birthday. I don't know if anybody knows that. So when she comes in, let's do a surprise happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you.
May the good Lord bless you.
May the good Lord bless you.
Pastor Lalu.
May the good Lord bless you.
Achiana.
May the good Lord bless you, Pastor. May the good Lord bless you.
What do we wish her?
We wish you many happy returns of the day, long life, good health, and prosperity.
Hip, hip, hip! Shout like real women! Hip, hip, hip! IPWF! God bless you, man. God bless you. I'm so happy.
It's really a privilege and an honor to be in your midst. As I've already declared, I'm not in your shoes, but at least I shadow one of you very, very closely. And so, by privilege, I've been proxy to watching an incredible pastor's wife do her stuff. So I'd like to start with, I don't even know, I mean, there's some questions here, but since we're keeping it real, I'd like to ask, what does it take out of you? Did you know, did you marry a pastor? Were you born again when you married this man? Did he love God when you met him? I mean, how did you walk this walk? And what has it meant to you? How did you come to find yourself now the pastor's wife?
Thank you so very much. Thank you. I'm so honored to be sitting on this platform. I don't take this very lightly at all. And keeping it real, I would say that first and foremost, I didn't marry my husband as a pastor. And to say it's a very spiritual role, all life is spiritual. So whatever it is that you are, as long as you're a Christian, every part of your life is spiritual. So for me, there was no, like Pastor Debola said, there's no preparation, there's no training. I'd worked in the church as a leader, and I'd grown into it. And so when my husband was called as a pastor, I had to ask our senior pastor because of everything that Pastor Wiley has talked about. And for me, it's important to me to be very real to myself. I like to tell myself the truth. There's a certain thing that we need to do. There's a certain thing that I need to experience. It's not first because I'm a pastor's wife. It's first because I'm a daughter of God. So, being a pastor's wife, you have to be yourself. Then, it is being yourself that you can give. Whatever you don't have, it can't transcend to whatever roles we play. We're here today talking about pastor's wife because that's a role we play. But if you're talking in another platform, we'll be talking to maybe engineers or whatever they are. It's still who they are that will determine how they play their different roles in different perspectives. So not to talk a long story. I hope I answered it.
I'm gonna push you a bit,
Okay.
because I have the mic.
That's not.
So we're keeping it real, and I want us to get practical. Can you give us one example that has really, when was that aha moment? I mean, I said it deliberately that it's spiritual because it's sort of the label that's in the church, the whole first lady thing, and the pastor's wife, and all the things we've already heard about from the first two speakers. But when was that moment that it hit you at, oh my goodness, ugh. And how did you cope with it? Like, when it hit you like, oh my goodness.
I ran from this a lot of times to ask myself, why me? And that's because of the expectations of people. And that's how they want you to look, or how they expect you to speak, or how they expect you to carry yourself. And by Christian standards, I wouldn't say I have all of that. I love to look beautiful. For some people, it means you're not spiritual enough to carry a certain kind of look. So you have to deal with those kind of people. You have to deal with people thinking that you don't meet up in terms of your spiritual giants, you know, in terms of what you speak or how much scriptures you quote. And so they judge you by your prayer time, and they judge you by so many other things. So I had to get to that aha moment for me was the time I said, you know what? I married a man. And in our marriage, you know, agreement, whatever he was going to become as a pastor or whatever, you know, comes with both of us. So I was careful not to step in line not to step in line where God has, you know, called. At the same time, as I grew in my Christian faith, I discovered that God also wants me to be part of that life, and that's why I am the suitable helpmate we are now together. So it's important. The aha moment is when you just discover that you are you by the grace of God, and also you are part of what God wants to do in the life of your husband, whether he's a pastor, especially because he's a pastor.
Thank you. Pastor Abby. I'd like to ask you, as the husband of the pastor's wife, now the pastor, who is the husband of the pastor's wife, have you ever seen, not even have you, when you've seen your wife, who is the pastor's wife, hurt because of that role, basically because she's your wife, how have you dealt with that situation internally? How have you encouraged her when you know that the only reason she was hurt was because she's the pastor's wife?
Well, the first thing is I must confess I've not always dealt with it the best possible way. We're all on a learning curve, and I'm also learning. The second thing is that as much as possible, I try not to expose her to people, in the sense that people have an expectation of the pastor's wife, or she's got to be in the choir, or she needs to do this. Children's church. Thank God, she, in her own time, found her own place. And there's been no pressure from me. Yes, there have been many times, and it's inevitable that you will feel hurt, and pastors get hurt too. But I think probably pastors' wives more so. And as much as possible, it's something that we need to talk about. That's the first thing, talk. Talk about it. So, Jumoke, I have tried as much as I can, but I'm still learning.
Take that. Thank you very much. Mrs. Adedopo, when there's a situation, Pastor just spoke to us about acting, and sometimes trying to put up that perfect facade. Do you have any advice now for pastors' wives when there's really something wrong, whether in the relationship, the pastor, maybe either person going out of line in whatever way, and that facade is up, like something is wrong, like, I mean, we're all married. Sometimes something is wrong, sometimes something may be very wrong, but putting that facade of perfection up there. In the spirit of keeping it real, how do we get to deal with those things without being sort of shut down that, oh, you should be more mature, you're a pastor's wife? How much do you hide or cover the man of God in any situation, or what do you reveal, what do you not? Because I sense that the mission of this is because there's some level of isolation being a pastor's wife and being on that pedestal. So when it comes to now relationship strains and challenges, even to some of the extremes that we talked about at the beginning, how do you see that?
I think being real can never be overemphasized, because we are called to be real to ourselves. Sometimes people say if people are deceiving you, it's easier than when you deceive yourself. So we are called to be real to ourselves. We are called to be real to God. You know, we're talking in the house, I think yesterday or the day before, and the children were like, why should somebody be angry to God? And we're like, yes, God is God, but you can be real. Tell God how you feel. And then you have this calling of being the wife to your husband, who everybody perceives to be an angel. They expect him to be above a human being. Everybody sees him with that strength, but you know his weaknesses. He has broken down crying before. So you have that responsibility of caring, nurturing, correcting. To some extent, you are his pastor. That's right. If nobody will tell him what is true, you must. So in this, we must be real to ourselves, real to the man, honest to him, and also ask God for wisdom. When the man has erred, it's not easy. When you also err, sometimes your husband alone correcting you is not funny. You just want excuses. So he's the man. So it might not be funny. So we need God's leadership, but we cannot cover him. Else, we will soon crash together.
So recently, I think over the last 7 or 8 years, we've run what we've called a Mr. and Mrs. Better Half series. Every year, the month of September is our family and marriage month. But very often for me, and at the end of that month, the month of September, it ends with a vow renewal service. And every year we do that. And it's amazing for me that last year, as I sat in church and just looked up at my husband delivering the marriage sermon at the renewal service, and just looking up at him there, I couldn't help it. My mind just went back, like 12 years in the first 2 or so years of our marriage, when I thought all hell had broken loose. And I used to wonder, but am I not born again? I thought I was born again, and I thought this man I was marrying was born again. The pastor's part was on another side. At least born again, we'll manage that one. And I used to wonder, what in the world is going on in this marriage? Communication was out of the window. It just didn't seem to be working. I mean, it came to a head on this particular day. We had had some big fight. I don't remember what we were fighting about once again. And I was driving to work. I mean, just to make matters even worse, my driver didn't show up that morning. It was raining heavily. I'm like, yes, frying pan and fire, everything scattering together. And I was driving to work, tears running down my face. I was just telling God, God, this cannot continue. I know I told you when I was getting married, I'm not going to embarrass you. I'm not going to be another reason why the people point to another ministry marriage and say, see, God couldn't do it. I know I told you that this was going to be forever and I was going to honor this vow. But God, it's become too hard. It can't continue. You know, and I was just ranting, and I was just ranting, and I was just ranting. And because, I mean, I've worked with the Lord for a few years now, so I know that when God begins to ask you questions, it's not because he doesn't know the answer. It's because he's trying to expose your foolishness to you. So my voice began to, the decibel began to go down. Yes, Lord, I agree. What do you want me to do? And this was his instruction to me then. He told me, I want you to go home today and treat this man as though he had never said one wrong word to you. As though he had never offended you. As though he had never said anything that made your heart break. And I understood what God was saying to me that day because of the temperament that I have. For some of us, it may not be a struggle for you, but because it's a real conversation, I can tell you honestly, the temperament that I have is the kind of temperament. You see that malice keeping that we used to do in secondary school?
Wow.
You tell me, hey, let us discuss this matter that you did yesterday. I will remind you about the one you did 5 years ago. And how come you have no right to call me up on what I did yesterday because you too, you are not without sin? So I understood what God was saying. He was telling me you have to wipe that entire slate clean. You see all those, your diary of plenty wrongdoings, it all has to go out. And you need to go home and love Him. Don't give yourself any more excuses. And you know, because I know that I've been this way for God knows how long, and I knew it wasn't just going to go away in one snap. I had to be honest with God. Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. If you will help me, I'm willing to do this. And I wish I could tell you this morning that I went home and suddenly everything was, there were days when I would struggle and I would default to the prototype. But the more I began to engage God's help and the more I began to allow God's word to show me who I am, strengths, weaknesses, and all, the more I was able sometimes to just get on my knees and say, God, I didn't know this was going to be part of the marriage equation, but I give it to you. I surrender it to you. And so now fast forwarding 12 or so years after, sitting and looking up at my husband, giving this vow renewal sermon, and getting ready to go up on that stage and say, I do again. I mean, my heart was so full about how God could bring us full circle. When God turned again the captivity of Zion. We were like those that, it was like a dream for me. We are the ones standing up here and teaching people that marriage can be lovely, marriage can be wonderful, it can be beautiful. If God is in it, He will be the centering factor in it. I mean, it was too wonderful for me. I mean, I was overcome that morning in church. So I know that I probably not answered the question, but I just really had to throw this on the table for someone right now who is struggling to even have hope. Just struggling to even find a hope that, look, this marriage, if these people know the kind of marriage I'm struggling with, hey, me too, I've done the one where you cry, and you're like, oh God, why is I like this? I've done that one too. But when I look now and tell you that I may not have a perfect marriage, I'm not sure anyone does have a perfect marriage, but it is good. You can believe me that it is good. Amen?
I have this question. It's actually a challenge for me. We pastor a parish reading, which happens to be more of a youth church. So we have quite a number of young people there, young adults. How often is this type of, as in, very harsh, you give it to them, you tell them the truth kind of person? And I know with my understanding with the young people, you don't come too hard on them. So I have this relationship with them. They tend to flow with me because somehow I've been there before I met him. He was this kind of saint, he's been ordained right from his teenage. But I've had a bit of art there. So I know what it is for the young people to struggle. So sometimes when it comes hard like that, I tend to still find a way of bringing them round. And sometimes I see them calling me, Mommy, Son of Man has fallen. I have that kind of relationship with them. They tell me when they commit abortion, when they do all those things. Now, my husband now seeing me kind of watching down that teaching. So I've always been like, we can't, these people, they don't have the kind of background we have. We can't go all hard and hard on them like that. So now I see myself tend to withdraw from some of them because they see me being too soft with them, watering down his message. What do I do?
My question is for Pastor Wale Adekarasi. You spoke about the pastor's home and the children. And I was wondering, in a situation where the pastor's children is not conforming, for instance, maybe a pastor's child gets pregnant, how do you handle that child vis-a-vis the public expectation and image in that kind of circumstances?
The issue of trying to correct one's husband, like I said earlier, it's not easy for any human being to accept correction. That's just the truth. It's not easy. When you, as a woman, when you're being corrected, sometimes you give excuses, like I said earlier. But the point is, my husband says something that if you don't praise me, then you don't have the right to tell me I did not do right. So I think that could be one thing we can invite. Let's praise them. When they do well, you preached well today. You blessed, well done. I'm blessed, I was also blessed. He's your pastor. Let him know that he has done well. So when you always praise him, when you always acknowledge his good, then when he does something wrong, I think it will be easier for you to be able to tell him and for him to be able to listen to you. Above all, the wisdom of God. The right time. And lastly, Yoruba will say that when you want to say pele, that's sorry. There's a male version, there's a female version. If he embarrassed you with that thing he did and you came and you were like, no, today, a fumble, you really did not. I'm not sure he will really listen to you. But maybe you let it go, get to a point where you are okay, you think you can even handle it. And with the wisdom of God, because if nobody can tell him, we have to tell them.
Going directly to the question I was asked, if I had a child that became pregnant out of wedlock, a son that become a drug addict, what would I do? The first thing is, it's my business. Okay, I don't need anybody's input or condemnation. And I'm not going to sweep it under the carpet. We have to deal with the issue. A girl that has become pregnant has become pregnant. At the time she's become pregnant outside wedlock, she doesn't need condemnation. What she needs is to be helped. She needs help. She's going to have a child. That child may not have a man that takes responsibility and says, I'm this child's dad. And so we've got to deal with the issues. Now, how do we stop that from happening in the first place? There's no guarantee, but train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart therefrom. It's important right from the very beginning that your child, as I said, by 10 years old, the child's character is formed, and the child must have an understanding. We're not giving our children sex education. You know, so if they're not being taught at home, if at home it is, you know, a dark subject that is not to be talked about, at the end of the day, they will go to try and discover more about it by themselves. So we need to be able to, in a child-appropriate way, give our children sex education.
This brings us to the end of the first panel. We've taken a bit of time from the tea break, but I think you'll be able to have a little something before we resume at noon. I'd like to thank the panel. I personally have learned a lot. I'm really privy to this pastor's wife. I'm enjoying it, I must say. I've learned a lot because I'm married too. So, thank you very much for your wisdom. Thank you.